Hi there. Are you a business leader finding it tough to attract and retain employees? If so, you're not alone. I'm Marnie Farnes, and I serve businesses and entrepreneurs here in Clark County with CREDC. And today you'll hear insights from three Clark County thought leaders, highly skilled in business consulting and recruiting: April Salsbury, Erin Lynch, and Raine Lunke. A sincere thank you to our community partners who value supporting entrepreneurs and small businesses. Tiger Stop, Perfect Company, and Firestone Pacific Foods. Thank you all for sponsoring this year's Grow Clark County podcast series. And to our presenting sponsor, IQ Credit Union, thank you for your generous support. I had the opportunity to digitally sit down with Julie Ahrens of IQ Credit Union. So now I'd like to provide this opportunity for Julie to share a little bit with you.
Hey, all you listeners. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to partner with CREDC for this fantastic podcast series. My name is Julie Ahrens. I'm with IQ Credit Union, and I work in the Business Loan Business Accounts Department. And IQ has been helping business owners just like you since 1940. So for the past 16 years, I've been super blessed to work with all types of business owners. So whether you're a business newbie or a business startup, just getting your feet wet, or maybe you've been a business owner who's been around for a while and you're well seasoned and you're ready to take your business to the next level and kick it up a notch, whatever life phase you and your business is in, please know that CREDC and IQ Credit Union, we are here for you. We've got a great group of speakers lined up for you. So grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea. Let's settle
Today,
in, sit
I've
back,
got
and
with me
enjoy.
April Salsbury, who is founder and CEO of Salsbury and Company. I've got Erin Lynch, senior recruiter with Neil Jones Food Company, and Raine Lunke, founder and recruiting strategist with R2R Strategic Recruiting. I want to give each of you an opportunity to introduce yourselves as well. So April, let's start with you.
Oh, I don't even know what to add to that. So I'm April, the owner of Salsbury and Company. We do business management consulting, human resource management, more on the day-to-day operation side of HR, and work very closely with outsourced recruiters such as Raine, and helping our clients facilitate the HR process. And then we also offer bookkeeping and payroll so that we're a one-stop shop for small business owners.
Love it. Erin, share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name's Erin Lynch. I'm the senior recruiter at the Neil Jones Food Company. We are a food processing company headquartered in Vancouver, Washington. We're supporting 3 processing plants, 2 in California, both of which are processing tomatoes. And then our Northwest packing facility is right next door to our corporate office, where we're processing Northwest fruit. Half of our plant is a cannery, and then the other half of the plant, we're making juice concentrates. So, and in terms of recruiting, I've been recruiting for 15 years this summer and can't believe it.
Time flies, huh?
Sure does.
Thank you, Erin. And Raine, how about you?
Hi, I'm Raine Lunke, and I reside here in Vancouver, Washington. I have been recruiting for over 15 years. Primarily in corporate recruiting. I primarily serve and partner with companies that have 100+ employees or are scaling quickly. Kind of took my corporate recruiting experience mirrored with technical recruiting and combined that into serving clients in a different and unique way than a traditional staffing firm. So yes, I do recruit and provide recruiting services, but I also provide a lot more services around your overall hiring process and how companies can better position themselves to be able to recruit the talent that they need on their own.
Yes, and I can say firsthand that both Erin and Raine, with their recruiting hats on, they do amazing work. And then to add into that, April, and the work you do with small businesses, I feel really fortunate that you all agreed to be with me today and to share this time and your expertise with businesses out there. With that said, I want to jump in and somewhat set the framework in thinking in terms of small business. And April, this first question that I have is for you. And so if I'm a small business or I'm an entrepreneur and I've started my business and I'm really at the place where I'm thinking I need to either hire my first employee, or maybe I've got employees and I'm thinking, okay, I need to start adding more. How do I determine how many employees I should hire and maybe when I should do it?
Well, being a small business, you generally have fewer than 20 employees, or none at all. I'm a huge data person. So first thing that I like to suggest to a business owner is write down, it doesn't have to be a full, complete job description, but write down what this person will be doing and approximately how much time that takes, and see if you can fill a good 30 hours a week type of a schedule for someone, especially if you're looking for full time.
Mhm.
And then on the other hand, also look at when you remove those tasks and you give them to someone else, what does that free you up to be able to accomplish, and what will you be working on during that time? All too often, small business owners will hire someone without real clear direction of what that person will be doing, and then they end up doing it all anyways because they don't feel comfortable delegating, or they don't trust that that person's at the level they need to be. And so
Right.
you have two people doing the same job. So that's where I would probably start. After that, I would look at your numbers. Depending on the industry that a person is in, you can have a labor to revenue ratio of anywhere from, I would say, 30 to 50%. The industries that are more person oriented, so like service industries, like even my own firm, they're going to be on the higher end of that worker to or labor to revenue ratio. And in looking at your numbers, do you have enough revenue left over to make sure that that person can make you 30, 40, 50% more than what their salary will cost you? And if you don't know this number, I mean, if you already have employees, you can go in and look what your existing numbers are. If you're not really sure what that number looks like, go ahead and you can go to Google and you can search for the average salary of a person in that position and see, the range that you'd be looking at, and multiply that by 2 or 3 times to see if you have enough revenue to support that role.
That's helpful information. You're always a wealth of information, April.
Thank you, Marnie. I
Yeah,
try.
I know you do well. Thank you. That's always just a good place to start. Should I hire another employee? So let's say I'm ready to hire an employee or multiple employees in some cases, and I'm ready to jump in and search for my applicants or my candidates. How do I effectively do that? What are some tips on conducting effective employee searches? And this is for each of you.
Well, I'll jump in. This is Raine. I would say this is probably the biggest area that not only small businesses, but I think any hiring manager fails to do. And kind of going back to what April said is look at the data and ask yourself, where is my talent residing? So many hiring managers like, oh yeah, let's just post a position on Indeed and then hope that we're going to get the applicants we're looking for this job description that I spent my time creating. But you need to be asking yourself, where are they? Are they on job boards, or are they not even looking for work right now? Are they actively employed? And if they aren't employed, where are they employed at? The other thing I'll kind of go back is I often see small businesses, especially, they're competing with the bigger name brand organizations, and they inflate their job titles. So they're like, oh, I'm going to make this individual contributor role a managerial position. And it's like, that's great and all, but you have to ask yourself, is the talent that I'm looking for going to be even searching on that inflated job title? Again, kind of missing the mark there. So use tools like Indeed or Glassdoor, there's salary.com to kind of identify what is the job title that I should be searching for that aligns with this role.
Sure.
I still see a lot of companies coming up with these creative job titles, and it's like candidates are only finding your jobs if they're searching for the job titles or terms that you're using. So that's kind of one thing, just like I have my managers check. But you got to go where the talent is. And so many hiring managers will reach out to me, or HR people are like, we can't fill our job. The first question I said is, well, what have you tried? Well, I posted it on Indeed. We're not getting any applicants. So I'm like, well, you're looking for a software engineer. That is not, I wouldn't recommend, Indeed being the place. Look and identify, where are your software engineers? Are they on GitHub? Are they on these other specialized meetup forums? And spend the money posting positions on niche job boards. Or, so many people are wasting money, I feel like, on these job boards that aren't providing any return. So I guess my answer to that is, first, do your due diligence and find where your talent is.
Yeah.
And then figure out what your strategy is from there.
Sure. And I hear you saying, make sure that the job title matches the actual work.
Yes.
Well, that's how people search for jobs. They go on Indeed or Monster and they sign up for alerts for every recruiter position that's sent to them. And so if you have a purple squirrel title, you're just not going to get people applying because they're not getting those openings sent to their email. So It's important. You have to think like a job board in that regard. There's a part of me that feels like people just aren't even looking at job boards anymore. On the other side, I do think it's important to post on job boards because it's part of an employer branding strategy. And you want to be known in the community so that when people are looking, that's one way that they're going to find out about you. I think a really important resource here in Southwest Washington is WorkSource Washington. It's a job board, and they also have employment specialists. And so if you have questions about what's an appropriate salary, you can do a Google search like April suggested, but you want to make sure that it's relevant to Vancouver, not to Dallas, Texas. And there's even a difference in salaries from Portland to Vancouver. So it's important that you're doing the research and being relevant about the wage, but they can help you with that. So they've got some really great tools. They also have a resume database that you can look at. So people that are unemployed frequently need to sign up with the state. And so you will see a bank of resumes. People may not be looking anymore. They may have found things, but I find people forget to take their resume down. And so that's the way I always open up my parameters. So I can see who was looking for a job 2 years ago and have they developed, what skills have they developed since they posted their job 2 years ago? And so you've got their contact information. It's easier for sure than going and trying to find that information because it takes time to find phone numbers and email addresses. So it's a pretty easy resource. If people aren't familiar with that, I would certainly look at that. The second, what Raine was saying about niche job boards. I know in the past, I look at what are local organizations like Women in Technology in Portland. They've got a very, very strong group of people, and they're really trying to promote women in technology. So any of my technology positions, that's where I go first.
Two things to add to that. You guys covered so much already. And thanks, Erin, for bringing up the WorkSource Washington, because we use that resource all the time as well. I think two other areas that we have used is going directly to schools. So depending on the industry or the trade that you're looking for, if you're in the schools and you're able to show your face, you can acquire that talent right before they graduate and just kind of facilitate them through the process. And another thing that we do, which probably most small businesses haven't set up yet, but is some way of marking prior candidates of interest. So we have a recruiting system that we use where all of the applicants go in, submit their information, and if they're a good fit for a position, but they don't get that position, they may be a good fit for another candidate or another position down the road. We'll keep them in mind to reference for a future job opening. In addition to that, I had something else, but now I can't remember. It just flew out of my head. I'll think about it in a second.
Sure.
The application process.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever applied for a job on Indeed, but it is terrible for the candidate. So If you can, I know this because I just helped my teenage daughter apply for jobs, but if you can experience what it's like to apply for your own jobs as a candidate, then you can kind of take out some of those extra steps and make it easier for them to apply and get through all of that mishmash of technology.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. It's always good to think through the eyes of whoever it is you're trying to attract, right? And bring in.
I just want to touch upon something that April just brought up, and that is the applicant tracking system and having those candidates that you may have received a year ago, or maybe that second runner-up candidate. Even for the larger organizations, I always say, like, we got to start with the database. And so many small businesses are like, I'm a small business, I can't afford a database. I personally use a free database. So I tell any small business that has ongoing hiring needs, which I think we all do if we're a small business, because we need to be hiring, and that's how we're going to continue to grow and thrive, is set up an applicant tracking system. There's so many out there, but there are free tools, and that will only help you continue to build your candidate pipeline. And I think we often...
And I would... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's just a missed opportunity for so many small businesses.
Yeah, I would chime in addition to a free applicant tracking system, there are also CRMs, and that if you can have one that you can use for both an applicant tracking system and a CRM, it's really a great way to keep track of people. Because frequently when I'm working on a position, I'm only going to hire one person, but I'm going to talk to 10. And that doesn't mean that those other 9 people wouldn't be great employees. It just means that one was perceived to create better value for us. And we've hired people that we released from consideration because we hired somebody else. And I'm the kind of person that if I talk to somebody, I would rather give a phone call and let them know they're not going to be considered than an email, because I just think it's a little more personable. And I hear about the candidate experience and how horrible it is at so many organizations. So I'm trying to honor people and be respectful. So I think it's easy to pick up the phone and let somebody know. But I always ask if I can keep their information on file so that if we have a position in the future that was a good fit for them, I'd like to be able to call them. And 9 times out of 10, people say yes. And I think they really appreciate it as well. We have hired people that way, where 6 months later, we've promoted somebody out of a position they interviewed for, and then they're the first person I call. And if I can bypass having to go and post a job or go through the whole recruiting process, because it's a much warmer phone call and we have some insight into that person. So I think it's important to use the technology to your advantage.
I think that's a great idea. A lot of businesses I hear, especially in this market, saying, I'm going to look for a part-time help. What's your thought on that? It seems like right now the market is so competitive that there's maybe not as big a pool looking for part-time. Would you agree with that? Disagree? What's your thought?
I think it's the same. You guys experience that too? Yeah.
It's the same. There's always a pool of people looking for part-time.
Yeah. I think there's people that prefer part-time, and then you have individuals. I think some of the newer generation are looking for multiple part-time jobs, so they have more flexibility, things like that. So if you look in the right areas, like what Raine was describing, you really know what you need and you look in the right areas, you can still find those individuals.
I think there's a huge population out there of really solid candidates that are looking specifically for part-time, even contract work. Maybe it's not set hours, 20, 30 hours a week. Maybe it's even more flexible than that. You have moms, you have people that are wanting retirements. You have this whole, what you would call the gig economy out there right now. I think what is important is for companies to be able to clarify what part-time is, what part-time means, what the expectations are. Are there benefits? Because there are certainly companies that do offer benefits for part-time employees that will set your opportunity as a part-time position apart. So I definitely think that, especially in today's competitive marketplace, if you can be open to that and set your position up in a way that is clear for those candidates, there's certainly opportunities there.
Another thought on that. I do get people back when there were in-person career fairs, frequently people would stop by and they were looking for part-time work. And we do have some part-time positions, but in our world, part-time does not equate with what the general public thinks of as part-time. It's full-time during our season and then part-time the rest of the year. And Raine, you'll be pleased. I make a point of spelling that out on my job descriptions or my ads so people know. But I think high school students, that's a great pool of applicants or candidates that are looking to be trained. They can't probably work full-time. And so if you're looking for somebody to do some part-time work, there's some really great programs in the Vancouver school districts, and looking at some of the schools that are doing some specialty training and going directly and partnering with the local high schools, look at generating a pipeline of part-time employees, essentially.
CREDC can always help make that connection. So if anybody's interested, reach out to me. I'm happy to connect. April, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say we've had some success by notifying or posting something at like daycare centers, because what we've noticed is a lot of daycare centers, specifically right now with the impact of COVID, they don't have extended business hours anymore. And so if you can get daycare for your children, it's generally 7 hours, maybe 8 hours max, and then you have to get the commute time in there. So if you're looking for people that can work 6 or 7 hours a day, as long as they can get back to pick up their kids, then they're looking for that job opportunity. So it's, again, finding out what those limitations are to people's chosen lifestyle or things that they're being affected by, and then target those areas to find those people.
So this is a nice kind of segue into kind of my next thought, which is, what are the top things that you're hearing candidates saying that they want, or applicants saying that they're interested in?
This is Raine. I will respond. I actually spoke with my team prior to this call and asked them that specific question because I wanted to validate my thoughts with actual fresh perspective of recent interviews. And hands down, the response was that right now with this pandemic, they are realizing that there's a lot more opportunity for jobs in the market that are offering more money and greater growth opportunities. They're realizing that, and they're questioning, like, what is the growth opportunity in my current organization? So they're pretty limited where they're at in their minds, and they feel that these other opportunities are really kind of offering more growth, whether it's in the role that they're applying for and being hired for, or kind of that next level step up.
That's good. Yeah.
Some of the people that I'm talking to definitely are looking for remote work, and depending on the role within our organization, because we're a food processing plant, our production people don't have that opportunity. And we would prefer that people are here in the corporate office. And so that we've lost out on a couple of really strong people because that wasn't going to work for going on at home right now. And just the reality with COVID, things keep changing in terms of schools. And if you've got kids in school, if they're even meeting in school, you need to be mindful of what parents are dealing with in addition to their work world. We're definitely hearing that, but I think it hasn't changed that much in other than it's something that now a lot of people are looking for. They're looking for jobs that offer remote work 100% or a hybrid model, but they want to work from home more than they want to drive into the office. And some organizations can accommodate that and others can't.
That's funny because I experienced just the opposite. Actually, I find more people like want to be in the workplace, but they want the flexibility, right? They want the ability to work from home if they have to and not miss out on those hours, but have a team that they can come in and collaborate with. I would say too, probably stability, especially with a small business. I think a lot of the questions I get are regarding how are you doing through COVID? Are you doing better? Are you doing worse? How are you going to support long term? Things like that. And then I think the last thing is probably benefits, which has really never been, I would say the last 3 to 5 years is really I've never lost a candidate because you don't offer benefit, especially when you're working in the small business realm. But I've been seeing that more and more often. And I think it's because people are elevating their pay scales to get better candidates. And when you elevate a pay scale, it pushes people out of the marketplace to where they get those funds to offset the cost of the premiums to a point where now they need an employer-based plan that saves them a little bit of money. So a lot of our clients, we've been having to look at what are your benefit plans, vacation options, what are you offering beyond medical and dental to really make this feel like a place somebody can feel secure and their family's taken care of and they have that work-life balance moving forward for the long term.
Makes sense. So shifting gears a little bit, why do employees leave? Based on your own experience or what you've heard or what you've read? Why do employees leave? How do we keep our employees? How do we increase our chances of keeping them? And why do they stay?
I mean, I go back to their immediate teams, their manager. I mean, you have people that I would consider highly underpaid for what they're doing, but they are so committed to their manager and their team. They're getting the support. They feel like they're cared about. And I think when employees start to feel that is lacking, that is an immediate reason for them to respond to our recruiters, reach out to look at a job posting. You know, I actually was just talking to somebody the other day. I'm like, you drive every day from Ridgefield to Clackamas to work, and your company has opportunities for you to actually work out of an office in Vancouver. Like, what? Why wouldn't you want to work out of Vancouver? And she said, honestly, when I'm having a bad day, that is the number one thing I question. Mm-hmm. But those bad days are few and far between because I work with the most amazing team, and I can't give that up.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think your team, your manager, your work-life balance, those are things that are really, really important. And our experience, so when we first bring on candidates, we sit down and meet with them to talk about like what their goals are. What do they see for themselves in 3 to 5 years? And sometimes you can address those things right up front where you may have an employee that just graduated, is looking for a job to kind of get some skill set base. They know there's not a ton of growth opportunity because your organization's small, but they can say, oh, I need to give this at least 2 to 3 years. Well, then in 2 to 3 years that person will probably be moving on if you haven't grown to a certain point. But other than that, I would say a majority of them have to do with the relationship with management. I very rarely see people leave just because of compensation.
Fair enough.
The other thing I see people leaving for is challenge, that they're bored in their current position. And I think growth can come in different ways. It doesn't always need to be a new title. I think you can look at different projects that people can get involved with. But I think most people, if they're learning and growing, they're engaged in their work. And if you keep your workforce engaged, they're probably going to stay with you.
Yeah. Those are all good thoughts. Thank you. So we're going to wind down here. And I want you to think of one thing. If there's one thing you want businesses to think about after they're done listening, what's one takeaway? What's one thing you think every business should know when it comes to recruiting?
Well, I'm going to jump in here. And it's probably not what I should say, but it's top of mind. And I think it is critical for where businesses are right now today and what we're going to be facing over the next 3 months. And, you're probably listening to this because you need to recruit and you need to hire and you're challenged with that. But I think right now, more than ever, you need to be recruiting your internal teams, because I think we're going to see a lot of resignations here. We've heard the tsunami coming of resignations, but I think you really need to double down on your current talent. Start doing stay interviews, looking at where are our employees engaged? Are they not? You need to stay ahead of your talent, because everyone is hiring right now. And so while you're trying to fill these other positions, you may have a whole lot more coming because of other opportunities that your team could be looking at.
Yeah, good point, Raine. Keep your existing team. That's number one. How about you, April or Erin?
One thing that I would say, well, to play off of what Raine said, I think it's good to take a really good look at yourself. Look at the culture of your business, look at your goals and what type of people you want there supporting you. And then look at it from the candidate's perspective and say, how do I match my ideal candidate with my culture, and how does my culture support that candidate? And there is a lot of people that have exited the workforce. Not only are they going to be jumping from a job to another job for whatever reason, you have baby boomers that are exiting more quickly than we predicted, because they just decide to retire early instead of dealing with all of this. You've got generation that is looking for flexibility, remote working, and potentially starting their own businesses. Gen X is like one of the smallest generations there is right now. And so you have to keep in mind that your workforce is very limited. So if you can look at yourself and make your company stand out and shine and really stick to all of those aspects, I think you will draw in those people that are attracted to that type of a company culture.
That's good advice.
So I'd say be curious when you're interviewing. Be curious about people. The way that you ask questions in an interview has a lot to do with the answers that you get. And so little things like making sure that you're asking open-ended questions instead of yes/no questions, digging a little bit deeper so that you really have an opportunity in that limited time when you're interviewing somebody to make it relevant to the job. Don't just have a checklist of they have this, this, and this. Ask them why. Go a little bit deeper in the interview process, and I think you'll have a richer interview. So be curious and also always be recruiting.
So many great thoughts and ideas shared today, and so much more that could have been shared had we had more time. A huge thank you to our guests. Don't hesitate to reach out to me at CREDC if you have any questions following our episode. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. That's where we'll post events and things that are happening in the community with businesses and otherwise. Also, join us in November as we celebrate Global Entrepreneurs Week with impactful guests that are sure to help you to move your business forward. Until then.